You ever notice how the things you regret buying rarely happen when life feels calm? They happen after a long day, after work drained everything out of you, after someone annoyed you, or after stress built quietly for weeks. You open your phone, scroll for a while, and tell yourself you're just looking. Then something catches your attention. A pair of shoes, a new gadget, food delivery that costs far more than cooking at home, a small upgrade that suddenly feels necessary. In that moment, you don't think about savings or next month. You think about relief. You think about comfort. You think, I deserve this. Maybe you said those words before after a difficult week, after feeling emotionally empty, or after wondering why spending feels easier when you're exhausted. That's what this conversation is about.
I'm Zack, and this channel exists for one reason, to help you understand the psychology behind money. Not just the numbers or the budgets, but the emotional patterns hiding underneath every decision. Because money isn't only math. Money is stress, identity, habits, and emotion. If you've ever felt smart in one area of life, but strangely inconsistent with money, you are not alone. This channel is about slowing those patterns down, helping you understand why your brain makes certain choices, helping you feel less ashamed about money habits, and helping you realize that financial behavior often has more to do with emotional survival than intelligence.
Most people think unnecessary spending comes from irresponsibility. They believe people spend too much because they lack discipline, don't care enough, or aren't financially educated. But that explanation misses something important. Many people who overspend are actually thoughtful. They understand money, saving, debt, and the importance of waiting, yet they still buy. Emotional spending rarely begins with greed. It begins with depletion. People often spend the most when they feel mentally exhausted, emotionally drained, or weighed down by life. You are not always buying an object. Sometimes you are buying relief, escape, or reward for surviving something difficult. Once you understand that spending is often emotional rather than logical, you stop asking, why am I so bad with money? And begin asking a more useful question. What feeling am I trying to solve? Emotional spending is rarely about the price tag. It's about what the purchase promises to do. It promises comfort, a mood shift, temporary control, and something pleasant in the middle of pressure. Stress makes future goals feel distant. Retirement feels abstract. Saving feels invisible. Present comfort feels immediate. That is where I deserve this spending begins, not in recklessness, but in emotional exhaustion. Now, I want you to imagine someone finishing a difficult week. They worked overtime, dealt with pressure, carried family responsibilities, slept poorly, and felt mentally stretched. Then they open a shopping app or walk into a store. Your brain is not operating from the same place it would on a peaceful Sunday morning. Stress changes decision-making. When you are tired, your brain prioritizes relief over long-term planning. Spending creates a fast emotional reward. The purchase becomes a tiny reset, a signal that says some good happened today. That's why emotional spending often happens late at night, after work, or during emotionally difficult periods. You are not simply buying an item. You are trying to change your emotional state. The brain learns quickly. If stress plus spending equals temporary comfort, the brain begins repeating the pattern. Reward psychology enters the picture. Buying something enjoyable releases chemicals linked to pleasure and anticipation. The excitement feels good. The delivery confirmation feels good. Waiting for the package feels good. Receiving it feels good. But eventually, the emotional high fades. The item becomes normal, the stress returns, and the brain remembers the shortcut. Buying helped before. So the cycle repeats. This is not about intelligence. Even highly capable people struggle with emotional spending because stress lowers mental energy and decision fatigue weakens resistance. Small purchases rarely feel dramatic, which is why emotional spending can quietly shape financial outcomes. Someone spending $40 3 times a week may barely notice it in the moment, yet that adds up to thousands over a year. Most people don't remember the individual purchases because they feel harmless and temporary,
But patterns matter more than isolated choices. Spending can also become identity repair. You buy something because you want to feel successful, less behind, or more included. Social media quietly fuels comparison. You see vacations, luxury dinners, new homes, and upgrades. Even when you know it's curated, your brain still reacts emotionally. Feeling deprived often creates spending because you want emotional balance. At some point, something changes, not dramatically or overnight, but quietly. You stop seeing spending as a discipline problem and begin seeing it as a signal. Signals tell you something about what is happening underneath the surface. Many people believe the solution is stricter rules, tighter budgets, or more guilt. But guilt rarely changes behavior for long. It creates a cycle of spending, regret, self-judgment, and promises to do better until stress returns again. The real turning point happens when you stop asking, "How do I stop spending?" and begin asking, "What keeps making me need relief?" Emotional spending becomes easier to understand when you notice the moments before you buy. The goal is not to eliminate spending forever or make purchases feel shameful. The goal is awareness. When you slow down and ask what you are actually feeling, the purchase loses some of its power. Sometimes you realize you are not excited, but tired. Not celebrating, but emotionally depleted. Not rewarding yourself, but soothing discomfort. Emotional spending thrives in speed, which is why pausing can help. Asking simple questions like, "What happened before I wanted this?" Or, "Will this solve the feeling or only distract me from it?" creates interruption. You may still decide to buy something, but now the decision becomes conscious rather than automatic. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming emotional spending only looks like shopping sprees or expensive purchases. In reality, emotional spending is often quiet. It hides inside everyday decisions that feel normal. It shows up in convenience purchases made when you feel too tired to cook. It appears in subscriptions you barely use but keep because canceling feels like effort. It appears in impulse purchases that seem harmless because each one is small. Emotional spending rarely announces itself loudly. It blends into routine. There are people who spend when they feel lonely, not because they need something, but because buying creates a temporary sense of connection. Browsing online gives the brain stimulation. Waiting for a package creates anticipation. Receiving something at the door feels like an event. For a brief moment, loneliness feels smaller, but once the excitement fades, the silence returns. That is why some people continue repeating the cycle without fully understanding why. Others spend when they feel stuck. Life begins to feel repetitive. Wake up, work, handle responsibilities, repeat. When days begin to blur together, spending can create the illusion of progress. Buying something new makes life feel different, even if only briefly. A new outfit, a home upgrade, a new hobby, something that creates the feeling of movement. Because sometimes the purchase is not about the item, it's about escaping emotional stagnation. There's also spending connected to self-image. People often buy versions of who they hope to become. They buy books they may never read, fitness equipment they rarely use, expensive clothes for a future lifestyle, or productivity tools that promise transformation. The purchase feels motivating because it represents possibility. You are not only buying an object, you are buying an identity. You are buying hope. This is why emotional spending can feel confusing. Sometimes the purchase seems logical. Sometimes it even feels responsible. But underneath the logic, emotion quietly drives the decision. The brain becomes very good at creating explanations after the fact. You tell yourself the item was practical. You convince yourself it was necessary. You build reasons around a choice that may have started emotionally. Another hidden trigger is boredom. People underestimate how powerful boredom can be. A bored brain looks for stimulation. It wants novelty. It wants something different. And shopping offers instant novelty, new products, endless scrolling, infinite choices.
The brain enjoys possibility. It enjoys imagining what life might feel like with something new. Boredom creates vulnerability because it lowers emotional resistance. There's also a connection between emotional spending and control. When life feels uncertain, purchases create a sense of certainty. You choose something, you pay for it, you receive it. That process feels predictable, and predictability becomes comforting during periods of chaos. During uncertainty, spending can create the illusion that you still control something.
As I end this video, the phrase, "I deserve this," is not wrong. You probably do deserve comfort, peace, and enjoyment. But the real question is what you truly deserve. Do you deserve another temporary emotional high, or do you deserve financial calm? Do you deserve another short-term reward, or do you deserve freedom from stress? Every purchase tells a story, not only about what you bought, but about what you needed emotionally in that moment. The more honestly you understand those moments, the less control they have over you. You stop reacting automatically, stop judging yourself so harshly, and begin seeing patterns instead of failures. That shift matters because changing money habits rarely starts with discipline. It starts with awareness, noticing, and understanding the emotional reasons behind what you do. Once you understand the emotional pattern, you no longer feel trapped inside it. If this topic connected with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I deserve this," right before spending? And after thinking about it now, do you believe you wanted the item or the feeling? I'm Zack, and I'll see you in the next video.